It's about repositioning your goals and reflecting on where you want to go next and what you want to do. Make sure you're healthy, make sure your body's in the right position, blood work is good, your relationship with yourself is good. You're able to transition away from that composition focus and start working on performance focus and start working on driving other factors in the gym you want to improve. And then that way, the ironic part is you're probably going to progress more in the gym anyway because you're less concerned about whether or not you have the right aesthetic image and more about how you're performing and processing and turning up. What is up, YouTube? We are back in the great down under. So this is the first video back from the States, which is awesome. A lot to cover, recap, break down, go through. Biggest things really was just the sheer amount of travel that we did and the amount of things that we got to do and see and be involved in. The summit was amazing. Huge thanks to Coach Catalyst, as always. They are a huge part of how we have succeeded and taken off the last couple of years. Their software and systems have been unreal in helping us grow the business and the way we interact with our clients and systems. So could not be more grateful to those guys to have both myself and, surprisingly to us not knowing, Brooklyn was on stage on the summit as well, which is fantastic. What else happened? We got on the Table Talk podcast with Dave Tate. So we didn't really talk about it before we left because we didn't want to jinx anything and make sure that it took place. But we were one of the few Australians now who have been able to guest appear on the Table Talk podcast with Dave Tate. It was a fantastic conversation. That should be releasing soon. It was about 3 hours worth of talking, which I hope was worth his time and very much worth the listener's time and take something away from. We also managed to get engaged in Washington, DC, which is, a lot of people tried to ask me for some romantic reason why I did it, but DC is a very important place to us. It's where the business really took off. It's where our relationship really took off. And that's what really drove us to that next level when we went there last year. So it's a place that will always be important to us, and that was really kind of the reason why I did it, or where I did it, sorry. What else? I mean, there's a million different things that happened over the last 3 weeks. To be honest, we probably crammed 10 pounds of shit into a 3-pound bag, and we probably could have compressed it a little bit closer. Tried to make a bit more of it fit into a couple of days, just because by week 3, we were very much exhausted and ready to be home. It threw me back in uni, threw us out of our systems a little bit. I've got a bit of catch up to do with training and food. Probably one of the only people in history to go to America and have lost 5 kilos. So that's something we've got to try and correct before prep starts. And God, what else? Oh, there's so much that happened. We'll no doubt go through it and get content out. There's a bunch of photos, videos, and recordings to go through. But the main thing is we trained at Venice Beach. That was really cool. Training at Gold's Gym. Anyone that's a bodybuilder or that's been bodybuilding knows that Gold's Gym is one of the OG places where you got to train. So we got over there on the West Coast, smashed out a session there, trained the Dragon's Lair in Vegas, managed to see where Flex Lewis is set up, and that's an unreal facility. But we'll cover a bit of that today and go through some of those things. Main thing today is we're getting straight back into training. So we landed on Friday, pretty much had the weekend to kind of relax, reset, get the system back in place. And now we're starting the brand new week and pretty much cranking everything as hard as we can. So we've got 8 to 10 weeks left to make the most of this off season before we start prep. So there really is no sort of pulling strings, pulling punches. It's go as hard as we can and push it. So that is what we're going to do. We have one of our arm sessions again today, but we've added a few additional exercises. So we've got some rear delts in there now as well. Lateral shoulders, we've got some bicep, tricep work, and we've got some lat pull down. So big session, in and out, nice and quick, and we'll get a shit ton of questions answered and we'll drop some knowledge. So let's go.
Reach out, don't
Updates for season C/B. Okay, so we pretty much got straight back off the plane on Friday morning. We're back to our usual shenanigans pretty much straight away on Friday. So client check-ins, steps, activity, getting groceries, nutrition, etc. And then Sunday was our usual posing workshop with catch-ups with clients, having a look over competitors and seeing how they're tracking. So as of today, Corey is now officially in peak week 1. I start my athletes peak weeks on Sunday, just because it gives me the most stabilized position to run a 6-day to 7-day phase. So Sunday to Saturday ends up being about 7 days by the time it's actually show day and everything across show day. So I start peak week on Sunday. So we had a final look over him on Sunday morning, which was phenomenal. Like, he's in crazy fucking condition. Considering our starting point, I think his shape is just structurally very well classic. A lot of things we'll work on in the off season now that we've actually got out of a deficit phase, and we'll start to build him back up. But where we are now is a very, very competitive position condition-wise. We're going to be running a midweek load for him, so we'll be doing a high fat yield on Wednesday, and they'll be doing 2 moderate carbohydrate days on Thursday, Friday, leading into the show. He is burning through fuel at the moment, so I want to see how his fullness holds being fed up to show day. A lot of times for athletes, I'll have a day between to let it wash off or control any spill. But for him right now, the way he's churning through food, he's actually losing weight on some of his carbohydrate refeed. So increasing fat load on the Wednesday to try and hold that fullness and slow down digestion. And I'm going to try and run that into the show on Saturday. So really good strategy for Corey. I think it's very exciting for where he is. Ange went to her posing workshop on Sunday with NBA. And we came back off the plane, and the changes she's made in 3 weeks in person were crazy. So she's gonna be in a very, very competitive position over the next 5 weeks before show 1, and then 2 more weeks after that for show 2. So I'll go a couple more weeks of aggressive dieting for her, and then I'll start to reverse in some food, make sure that she's fed, and then we'll start testing some looks to see how she changes and fills up, try and bring some fullness back to her body, reduce some fatigue, and try and bring that pop out of her shape. So very, very good figure and figure international look. Be keen to see how that sort of all ties together over the next few weeks. So very exciting season ahead. And we've got then obviously our prep starts about 8 weeks time. And we'll be going full steam with that for season A. So yeah. Top 3 weirdest things Americans do, or a couple of weird things Americans do. One of the weirdest things that I've ever done one of the weirdest things I've done over there is coffee creamer. So Americans rarely put just milk in their coffee if they have coffee. Even though the drink is called an Americano, the amount of weird looks that I got for just getting a long black, or like a black coffee with some ice, was hilarious. Everything, like, you have a coffee, everything is asked with, do you want creamer? Do you want this with it? Spice, what do they have? A pumpkin spice or cinnamon spice, creamer, latte, yada yada. It's like a weird mix of like an aerated cream and like a milk texture, and adds like a creaminess to the coffee instead of just adding like a little bit of milk. It's odd. It's like even the low sugar ones still have like a high degree of fat because it's a cream. So very weird addition for me. The other weird things that Americans do, their intersections don't have sounds on the walk lights. So like when we hit the buzzer and it beeps, and then it beeps really fast and tells you to cross, they are dead silent. It is weird. So like it'll go green and we'll be talking, you won't even know it's gone green until people are walking. So that's an odd one that I don't know how more people haven't been hit by cars. Other weird things that Americans do. There's so many. Just their variety of fast food. Like, actually no, a better one is the reluctance to give you vegetables when you eat out. So one of the things, like, we go to like a scratch kitchen or a diner, I would have to either get my choice of the carbohydrate or ask for extra veg. And the amount of times where I said I wanted like a plain jacket potato with my steak or chicken and then have broccoli with it, they would think I was asking to like swap out the potato for the broccoli, or I'd swap my broccoli for potato. instead of just giving you vegetables and starch carbs. But when you want a potato, they'll also then ask you if you want sour cream, cheese, bacon, or a loaded jacket. So like it's definitely a cultural thing where it's a lot more reluctance to give you vegetable portions and like a more complex carbohydrate. You wanted chips or you wanted like something deep fried, done, no stress. But actually getting like a complex nutritional option was definitely less on their priority list. So that was an interesting thing. It definitely impacted my digestion a lot more than I anticipated after 3 weeks of American eating. That'd probably be a few of the things a bit weird. How important is rep cadence for beginners? So if you've followed us for a fair while, you probably know my response to this, but rep cadence and standardization is integral for the early phases of beginner client training comprehension, training acumen, and skill development. So we're trying to standardize skill acquisition, neuromotor control, basically have the client master the movements, master control of their body, master the tension, understand what it's supposed to feel like before we progress. A lot of time clients will start with me and they'll have no standardization to their technique, no standardization of their reps. So like rep 1 will be at a certain speed and a certain range of motion. Rep 2 will be another speed and range of motion. So we have no gauge on what the actual tension and stimulus is doing or where it's located or what the limiting factors are of the movement. Ideally, I find a lot of people try and rush to have this advanced programming for clients, especially early on in their training careers, try to be that advanced coach. But most of the time, standardizing programming and having clients master the movement mechanics, control, rep speed, tempo, range of motion is going to yield a better result because now they understand and starting to develop what it actually feels like to train, what that muscle group is supposed to feel like when it fails, how close to failure they can get, and then we can work back from things. So a lot of time people try to rush to the gas principle, make sure they have like their 4-week periodization, make sure they have a 4-week mesocycle with a pre-programmed deload. For most of my beginning clients, we won't deload for 3 to 4 months because by the time we actually standardize things, they haven't really truly been training hard for that period of time. So we're trying to build that rep cadence, rep control, rep speed, range of motion, and then 16 weeks or so into a program, things are starting out to actually start to get sore because we've standardized everything. I know the body's due for a deload. So the importance of learning that early on in training career cannot be overstated, sorry. I truly believe that a lot of time people rush to be that advanced client or that advanced program, but it's not needed. We need to standardize things first and build a system, and then from that, we know that their training acumen is going to get better and they'll improve. Anyone that is debating what burger is the best, Five Guys smokes the shit out of In-N-Out. For just a good, tasty, quality burger, In-N-Out is so overhyped coming from Australia. Our wait basically to get a dry burger and very plain chips. Five Guys, fantastic. I did some content on this just the other day actually. One of the big things I've really changed my mind on is removing this idea that there's a preset amount of calories that someone should get lean on. and then depending on the client goal and the time frame that we have, it's going to require the calories it requires. And it's up to the client, it's up to you as a coach to decide if it's worth the squeeze, or if you should pull out and reverse out, try again later, or change things around. But at a certain point, it is going to require the energy discrepancy that it will require to get to that position. I used to be of the opinion, if you have to go below 1,800 calories or 1,200 calories to get someone lean, you're a bad coach, you don't know what's happening. I mean, I've had clients prep on 3,000 carbs in peak week, but I've also had clients have to dig down to 1,100 to 1,000 calories just to get weight to keep moving. So understanding individualization in clients is key to getting their specific result. Yes, at an average level, most people probably shouldn't go below 1,800 calories and probably should be eating more food, but depending on the client's goal, I really shifted my mind, especially recently after America and stuff like that. Even before that I was doing this, but really clicked in my head with how unique each person is and the different types of clients we can work with, that it's all going to come down to accuracy, accountability, consistency, and then obviously all the genetic components, training intensity, things like that, body composition to begin with. But those factors are all going to implicate how lean someone gets on certain amounts of food. So thinking that you're going to have a threshold of what's acceptable, I think is really limiting your client's ability to get lean or achieve their goal. And it just might require different approaches, or perhaps changing your lens and looking at things a little bit differently. But that's something I've really changed my opinion on as a coach. And I'll apply that now a lot more going forward with it takes what it takes to get the client lean. And it's up to us as a team to decide if it's worth that or not. One of the things to really recap though is the summit overall. So the Coach Catalyst Super Summit, fantastic event as usual. 2 days of amazing speakers. Some that, the diversity was great. There were some that we perhaps didn't need, but definitely served others. There were some that others probably didn't need, that others there may have benefited from. So there's a good diversity of who you want to listen to or kind of like take from. A lot of people currently in the industry, thriving in the industry, making change in the industry. Some of the big things that we really took away or that we recognized was how important systems and communication and community are. 3 things that we really try and nail as a team. Like, we don't have 100 clients a week coming through for churn and burn models of like 12-week challenges, things like that. We try to keep a very strong culture and team inside of our community. We try to engage with them accordingly. I really try to make everyone feel a part of Matter as something special and unique. But having the right systems in place to make sure that you're able to handle your clients, get work done, not drop quality. And the other side was just communication and really making sure that you're communicating with your team effectively. Communicating expectations, what they need to do, how they can best serve their result, how they can best get their results, how you can best serve them. Having interaction across the weeks, not just messaging someone when it's payday or it's time to get paid. Where the cool thing was that what it seems like to us that Matter has all the stuff in place they need to have, and it's a matter of time before things grow and expand and get bigger and bigger, which is fantastic. But we're also really proud and happy with the fact that what we've built in the last couple of years is at the forefront of what all these experts are discussing as essential to a good coaching community and result. So that was huge. Myself, I was on stage as an online coach. We were a panel of 4 discussing the industry as being an online coach, and Brooklyn for the first time ever was on stage talking about marketing and branding. Really cool to see that they used a really great result for her was that they discussed branding and how well Matter does their brand. So really cool aspect for us, obviously, is just having that branding established and what that means. And so to have someone asking her about or discussing with her about how well Matter does branding was pretty cool for her, I imagine, and what it looked like to her. So yeah, they were 2 really cool situations, both of us on panels as experts. I'll use that loosely. And be able to discuss our realms of work and what we do, I think was rather cool and unique. So yeah, all in all, it was a very successful trip to the summit and to contribute to the industry. What is the most boring phase of prep? To be honest, the entire thing should probably get pretty boring. This is something that I think people get wrong because they see the hype, the glamour, the glitz. Like, you know, you watch someone's highlight reels, or they'll do like a prep recap and it's over in 2 minutes, and then you're watching a reel and all of a sudden there's all this cool shit happening. A lot of the time, depending on, regardless of the duration of time, prep isn't exciting unless you make it exciting. So the actual act of prepping should be boring. You're not adding complex novelty, you're not adding additional stresses, you're not going out and doing things that are going to disrupt your flow. Everything should be standardized, routine, mundane, repetitious, getting to a point of just rinse and repeat. Yeah, you know, you want to do things with a family, spend time with your people, get outside your space and do some things, but it's got to be included inside that. It's got to be, you're accommodating for that fact. You know, the worst things that I've seen in preps are when people decide to ad lib, go and do something like, I'm going to go clubbing at 11 o'clock at night, not get home till 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning. Those things, like those random decisions, start to make the whole prep more complex and complicated because stress is high, cortisol's high, you're not sleeping, you miss your routine, you wake up and now you're behind the 8 ball. In and of itself, the monotony of prep should be boring. You're doing the same thing day in, day out for 20, 25, 30 weeks, rinse and repeat. And if anything, it gets harder and harder, so you should phase out the complexity. So, you know, for me, I embrace the boredom for most people because the reality is most people couldn't handle preps because they can't do the same thing over and over again and focus on the long-term play. A lot of people need instant gratification, short-term pleasure, and have a response, like there needs to be an output to the input very quickly. In prep, you don't get that. There is weeks and weeks at a time before things occur or become visible. You get to the back end of prep and you're finally starting to see changes, but that took 20 weeks of the same action and just increase in intensity. So to me, prep is not like playing football, playing touch, playing soccer, playing gridiron. The week to week isn't that exciting. The hindsight and reflection is exciting, but that's to me why in the moment you need to make it as enjoyable as possible and find the pleasure in that suffering and that sacrifice, because it overall really isn't that exciting to most people. That's why they don't do it. How did you handle nutrition over 3 weeks? That's a good one. So, being in America and being that I'm in more of a growth phase, we're a little bit looser with food consumption. Given that we didn't have scales in a lot of places, food tracking was iffy at best. So one of the things we did was go with a lot of pre-made meals, make sure that we added to it. So a lot of pre-made meals lack enough protein for someone like me. I'm on 250 grams of protein a day, and they lack vegetable diversity. So we were, you know, going to, especially if we had a place with a kitchen or microwave, we were going to like the larger grocers like a Harris Teeter, Giant, what else was there? Like a Costco, not a Costco. They're the Targets, like the places that have the massive grocers, they often have fridge sections with pre-made food. So pre-made meals, pre-made foods, you know, roast potatoes, mashed potatoes, lean meats, things already pre-made and cooked. And so we basically get meals and add to it so that you have a rough guesstimation of what your tracking looks like. Big thing was making sure that 2 or 3 meals a day all had vegetables or fruit, fiber, and every meal had protein. I preach this stuff to my clients, but I applied the same rules. I was having 2 shakes a day, went straight to the grocery store, to the lifestyle section, to the health section, and got a bag of protein, carried that around with us everywhere, and we're just adding scoops of protein to things like oats, cereal, having shakes, and then make sure that every meal that we went to had protein. If we knew we were going to somewhere like a Cheesecake Factory or somewhere with less food availability, and it was more about fast convenience, we got pre-made or ready to go drinks, ready to go proteins, got fruit and vegetables. I was probably the only guy in Vegas buying fruit from the local convenience store. So trying to get those things in and stick to the basics so that if we did have burgers or we had cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory, we had a steak and starch potatoes or chicken and starch vegetables first, then had something extra. Ideally, this probably wasn't the most accurate way to go about it because I actually came back losing weight, but at the same time, my digestion was off, food variability was different. It just didn't sit as well as it does over here. So for me, it was just about getting as consistent as possible and then reassess when we got back. So still gave a fair amount of food in, but it just wasn't anywhere near as consistent as what we do over here. So kind of led to a bit of weight coming off. But they're just easy strategies you can use, especially on a longer trip. And then on top of that, obviously we made sure we got at least 3 to 4 sessions in a week, walked as much as possible. So everything was still relatively the same to our systems back home. We just modified it to be in a different country. Prep screen in public so people can engage if they are ready themselves, or do they need you? No. So, yes, no, for the questions. So, once the psych preparation lecture goes live, the pre-screening that we're going to be using will go live with it. It'll be free to download. Again, this is something like I spoke heavily on with a lot of people over in America. I spoke on it with Dave Tate in the podcast on Table Talk. I don't believe as many people should be prepping as are prepping, though I love bodybuilding. I think a lot of people are doing it for neurotic, egotistical reasons that are driving self-image issues, body image issues that aren't actually ready to compete for the sake of competition. They are competing for some sort of null void that they're trying to fill, or trying to find something that isn't going to be found in bodybuilding. Then obviously bodybuilding cops the consequence of that, where they're unhappy and dissatisfied, neurotic, body image issues, etc., etc. So for me, I want to push bodybuilding for the right reasons. I want people to fall in love with bodybuilding, physique development, and self-development in the same token, for the right reasons. So the psych screening process will come live with that course for free because I want people to have it. So that's a big thing for us that I want to make sure is getting out there. So there's no like, you're not going to need me. If you use it and you want me afterwards, fantastic. I'm hoping or seeing that a lot of coaches will be interested in it because they want to use it. And then from that, it just kind of helps derive an improvement in client psychology when they're prepping, or the client preparation, and make sure they're ready to prep, I think is a big one. So less just churning over numbers and getting people in the door for the sake of being a prep coach, and more taking responsibility for the quality and the experience the client is having, and being able to give them the real prep benefits and the real prep or bodybuilding results outside of just getting on stage. If I don't want to compete again, how do I transition to life goals? This is a big one. Something I think needs to be discussed more from coaches, that it's perfectly okay to no longer want to compete. I think you'll get this idea their identity becomes about they have to be a competitor. Say they've loved bodybuilding, they did it, they smashed it, or they don't like it anymore, whatever it is. I would much rather you go into it understanding that it doesn't have to be for you, it doesn't have to be it forever, that you can do it, enjoy it, take the benefits and walk away. It's like beating Vegas. You can get out while you're ahead, or you can get out when you decide it's no longer for you and walk away. A lot of people get the idea that because they put out some content or because they put out XYZ, they have to now be this person. There are a million different things you can do with a coach or be coached for outside of whether or not you get on stage. Physique development, I think this is a big misconception, and it's not to say that's why people do it, but there's this big misconception in coaching that a client will lose some weight and the next step is automatically get on stage. I hate it. The amount of people that I see get pushed towards competing just because they lost 20 pounds or coach is trying to get some reputation on stage and pushes their clients to do it. Reality is, I would rather you walk away knowing it's not for you in a healthy position, or perhaps, you know what, I'm done. I'm okay with what I got, with where I finished, I'm over it. It served its purpose and now I'm ready to move on to the next challenge. That's okay. I think more people need to talk about the fact that it's about repositioning your goals and reflecting on where you want to go next and what you want to do. Make sure you're healthy, make sure your body's in the right position, blood work is good, your relationship with yourself is good, you're able to transition away from that composition focus and start working on performance focus and start working on driving other factors in the gym that you want to improve. And then that way, the ironic part is you're probably going to progress more in the gym anyway, because you're less concerned about whether or not you have the right aesthetic image and more about how you're performing and processing and turning up. So a lot of the time, I wish in off season people would stop just identifying as being a bodybuilder. You know, it's not about the next prep, it's about how do you build your systems and process. So if you ever do decide to prep again, you can, and you pull that trigger and say, I'm ready. But if you don't, it's perfectly okay, and your life isn't over because you're not a bodybuilder. You are great doing the things that you are doing and trying the next thing. I'm fine with you doing the next thing you want to do. And I think that's a big approach that a lot of coaches need to have that conversation on, try and open up that dialect, that just because someone's competed with you for a little while doesn't mean they can't transition to other things and try and reshift or reframe that focus. So that's something that, yeah, I think is a good question that needs to be addressed a bit more. That is our first big session back, countryside, back into the sticks. As you know, we've got, by the time this comes out, Corey will probably have been on stage. Andrew will be coming up. Corey's doing nationals in Victoria, so that's coming up. There's a lot of content to be released, a lot of podcasts to be released. We've got some of our lectures coming up. A lot of things that are coming, so make sure you're in the system of Matter itself. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to our email list and our website. Get up to date, notified with things. Remember, we have prep spots that are open. We had a massive enlistment of consults this week coming back from the trip, so spots are filling. Make sure that you are booking in, having a free conversation. Figure out if we're the right fit for you. Figure out if we have the right system for you, and vice versa. We'll make sure that we're the right coach for you. So that's all happening. Get in, book it in, and also just make the most of our free stuff. It's there for a reason, it's free. And yeah, make sure you like, follow, drop a comment. Tell us what you want to see next. Tell us what you'd like to know more about the trip, more about what we do overseas, more about the business, whatever. We're putting that content out, so let us know.